Here's 11 reasons home care agencies can't make paid ads work. After personally speaking with over 200 in the last 4 months, I'm going to share the reason, then exactly what you can do to fix it so you can grow your home care agency faster. And if we haven't met before, I'm Ryan Clark. I'm the co-owner of HomeCareGrow.io, where we help 70 plus agencies across the US scale their home care agencies using our Home Care Grow paid ads and sales system. So reason number one is ads are not specific to the client avatar. I spoke with many agency owners that ran paid ads, and when I asked them, what did your ads look like? A lot of the time it's, oh, well, I don't know because I paid someone to do it. I know it didn't work. Or if they have an idea of what it was and I look at it, it's typically like, hey, we do home care. It's not calling out a specific avatar, meaning like eldest daughter who's starting to experience a parent that is at the very beginnings of Alzheimer's dementia, right? It's not calling out specifically a veteran or Medicaid family caregivers, right? That's an example. If we are doing awareness ads for brick and mortar, typically it's a waste. Brick and mortar, you can make direct marketing work, meaning you don't need to be doing all this crazy awareness campaigns that you would do for a nationwide campaign for a very big company. When you're going brick and mortar, local area, 30 to 50 mile radius, it's really about getting people's information, a very specific person, so that you can then lead them to the next step, which is usually a call, right? So that's number one. The fix for that is you need to decide who your avatar is. So something we do with all the agencies that we talk to is we find out who's the client that pays them the most and stays the longest. We do this using our agency growth calculator, where we essentially spit in how many years a specific avatar will stay with you, whether it's veterans, Medicaid family caregivers, assuming you can serve all these people, or private pay, right? Eldest daughter being one example, the dementia, Alzheimer's. How long do these people stay? How much do they pay you, and how many hours per week do they stay? And then what you can do is get a rough idea of what your lifetime value is per customer. Once you know how much a client pays you, you can say, okay, cool. Well, this avatar pays me 3 times as much as the others. Why am I even focusing on these? The answer is you shouldn't. Sure, you can diversify and do all that, but a lot of the times with marketing, we're just trying to put in a function, which is money, and getting back as much as possible. You're going to do that when you are attracting clients that pay you more and stay longer, right? So if you find out for you that's veterans, all of your advertising should talk to veterans, right? There is no like general we do home care, because that does not convert. Number two, ads poorly designed to capture qualifying info. So once you nail down your avatar, now you have to ask the right information. This is also why you need to be specific to a client avatar, because if you're just getting general information, the next step in an ad is getting information. So the questions that you are forced to ask with a general ad are different than if you can be specific to the avatar. Example, with veterans, the main thing you have to know is, are they in your service area, which is general, sure. Do they have a real need for care, general. And then do they want care now in the next 6 weeks, general. But then the two specific things are, were they in the military more than 90 days, and were they honorably discharged, so they qualify for VA benefits? You would not ask those questions on a general ad. And if you did, you're going to hurt your conversion, because you also need to include the other questions for Medicaid and private duty. So just do yourself a favor and make sure all of your ads are pointing towards one avatar. And yes, you can run multiple campaigns for different avatars, but if you're just starting to make paid ads work, don't start trying to catch all the fish. Focus on one fish, all right? Ads. So the second piece being ads poorly designed to capture qualifying info. We need to make sure we're asking the right questions, but only the right questions. Two problems I see a ton, going back to the first reason, is too much information in the ad. People are trying to sell their service in the ad. That's not the place to do it. All you're trying to do in an ad is say just enough to make people raise their hand and enter their info, and then fill out, 3 to 4 other questions. That's it. You're not putting in your USP. What makes you different? That stuff comes on the sales call, which is like the intake, the first call. Don't put that in an ad. It will not work. And I'm saying this from experience, just so you guys know, like, I've never owned a home care agency, but we spent 9 months building this system before we took on our first paying client. And between my partner and I, we spent $5 million in Meta ads to generate $40 million for our other companies. So I'm passionate about this because I've spent the money and I've seen the returns on what works and what doesn't. And let me tell you, I've wasted a lot of money doing what doesn't work. So learn from my mistakes. So with that in mind, you want to ask the right info. Number 3, contacting leads too slow or responding too slow. So a key point of lead nurture, once you've gotten a lead and you've determined them qualified, is you have to reach out to them quickly. So this is true for any service business, but we have tons of data on this with the 70 plus agencies we work with. Do yourself a favor. Every single lead that comes in, you have to respond within 5 minutes, period. There is no like, oh, I was busy, or that. You have to find a way to do it. Otherwise, you're leaving so much money on the table. And I can give you an example, but you want to have 95% response time within 5 minutes, ideally 60 seconds. And for some people listening, that might feel like, oh my God, how is that even possible? It's necessary, right? But this is, again, this is the first part of why, or maybe not the first because you have the other 2 reasons I gave you, but once you get the lead, it's the first part of why the paid ads aren't converting. You have to reach them quickly while it's top of mind, right? People are so distracted. There's so many things grabbing their attention. You have to hit them as soon as possible. So you got to hit them. And then the second piece to that is responding too slow. So it's once the lead comes in, yes, you reach them quickly, but then when they respond back, either they call you back or they respond to a text, same thing, within 5 minutes, 95% of the time. If that feels heavy, this is, again, just what it takes. Number 4, contacting leads only within a short time window. So we have speed, but then we also have availability. If you are reaching out to your clients or your leads and responding to them within 1 minute, but it's only during your lunch break, which is an hour a day, that's not going to work. It has to be within 5 minutes, 95% of the time, 7 days a week, 10 hours a day or more. But that's what we found is we'll call it the minimum effective dose, or what would you call it? I'm going to call it that. That's not exactly probably what I should frame it as, but where you want to be is within 5 minutes, 95% of the time or better, and then 7 days a week, 10 hours a day or better, right? Obviously you can't increase the days in the week, but you can increase the hours per day, right? Okay, number 5, contacting leads not enough times. So we have speed when it comes to lead nurture, right? So you have lead generation, which is the first 2 reasons. Now you have lead nurture, which is essentially 3, 4, 5, and will be 6 in a second. So speed, availability, and then we have volume. There we go. So with volume, we have to make sure we're hitting the lead enough times. If an agency reaches out once and then says, well, they didn't respond, therefore they're not interested, therefore bad lead, you're throwing money out the window. Or instead, what should happen is a choreographed, this is the key part, choreographed. It should be the same every time. There should be a choreographed follow-up sequence, not when you feel like it or your team feels like it, not when it's convenient, but when it is the highest likelihood that this person will respond. So an example of that might be within 5 minutes or 60 seconds when they first opt in, later that day or 6 hours later using a different communication channel, right? If you called and texted, maybe you leave a voice memo this time, right? Maybe you send a GIF with a video. Maybe you send a personalized video that's like, hey, and it can be your sales team too, but if it's you, it can be like, hey, this is Ryan with ABC Home Care. You know, I saw you opted in for this, wanted to be able to help you out. Is now a good time to give you a ring? Think about that for a second. How many home care owners would do that? I can tell you how many I've talked to that do that. 0. So If you're trying to differentiate yourself, instead of doing it in the ad, you can differentiate yourself in the lead nurture process, right? And this is, again, a lot of the things that we talk about with our team, because very high level, there's two things you need. Yes, we'll say that. There's two categories of things you need to make paid ads work. You need lead quality and lead volume, right? Everyone knows that. Every agency I talk to knows that. Balloons, exciting. You can tell them on a Mac. But the other thing you need is the right cold traffic sales process, right? So what do you do once you get the lead? And that's lead nurture and sales, and then obviously the right people to execute it. A lot of people put all their attention on the lead quality itself, that they put no attention towards the cold traffic process. Therefore, they aren't hitting their leads fast enough, aren't reaching them enough times, so on and so forth, which we'll go through more. All right, let's keep going so we're not talking all day. Number 6, automating outreach attempts to qualified leads instead of personalizing them. So the 4 pieces or pillars to lead nurture to make paid ads work are speed, availability, volume, and last one is personalization. Now, I'm not saying you manually send out every single message forever, but what I am saying is anyone who responds to you, right? Automation has a place. Automation should be done when the message is the same regardless to the prospect. Whenever you've already had conversations with a client, you should not be sending automated messages. You should have a system to send systemized messages. What's the difference? Systemized means they always happen. It's choreographed. Your team always does it because there's an SOP, a standard operating procedure for it to get done, but it's not the same message. There's a template, but then they personalize it based upon what they said in their last conversation. How do you think that's going to improve conversion? Of course, it's going to be better, right, than just a generic message. So anyone who has made contact with you or your team, they should be getting that systemized, personalized touch, right? What's a touch? Well, there's multiple ways we can touch: call, text, and email. And with text, there's multiple ways you can do it. You can send SMS, words, you can do voice memo, you can do video, right? Those are five different ones right off the rip. All right, number 7, they are using a warm traffic intake process, or a intake script or a sales process for cold traffic, even if the leads are qualified. This is a writer downer. Warm traffic sales motions don't work for cold, period. So what does that mean? If you have built your agency, even if you've gotten to 10 or 20 million a year, but you've only done it from referrals, and you have used marketplaces like A Place for Mom, and you are not closing at least 15% of your leads, I could go a little lower and say at least 10%. I can just about assure you that your cold traffic process is not good yet. You may be using a warm traffic sales motion for cold traffic. So let's define what warm and cold is. Warm is referrals, right? And technically you could say that's like cold, warm, and hot. But we're just going to say cold and warm, right? Because it's a spectrum, right? Every lead's on a spectrum. You have like the coldest of the cold, which is like A Place for Mom leads because they're like shared and non-exclusive, not as qualified, and not as fresh all the time. And then you have where we sit for cold, which is like every lead is qualified for your pair type, has the budget, the authority, the need, the timing, but they're still cold, right? And then you have the hottest of the hot, which is referral from a hospital. They're getting discharged. This person needs this immediately, and they've already the agency or the hospital's already edified you and your agency. They know exactly essentially what it costs, and they're just essentially you take their order and they buy, right? So if you use a warm traffic process, which might look like, okay, what happens when you get on the call? I talk to them, I learn about, their needs, who needs the help, and then we get into essentially what how many hours they need, and then we pretty much start assembling the plan of care, do the in-home assessment, close them down 90% of the time. That process does not work for cold. It does not work. If you do that, then what usually happens is, again, you blame the leads. And it's like, oh man, these leads suck because I can't convert any. It's not my fault, it's the leads. when really what it is a combination of things. Yes, a place for mom leads are not that good, but why is it that some agencies can close 10, 15, or 20% of them? It's because they have a very good cold traffic process, which the majority of agencies I've talked to, 95% plus, do not have. And it's not their fault. They've never had to learn how to do it. Think about it. I've had agencies I've talked to that they're doing 10 million a year. That's not a low amount, right? I mean, 8 figures a year, but they've done it all off referrals. So they've never had to learn to do cold traffic, right? But I can just about assure you that if you are doing 3, 5, 10 million a year and you're stuck, the thing that's stopping you from getting to 30, 50, or 100 million is most likely a cold traffic qualified lead process. So let's talk about that. What should it look like? Okay, so what a good cold traffic sales process looks like is, number one, after all the stuff we've talked about with lead nurture, when you get them on the phone, there has to be a way bigger emphasis on the pain that they're experiencing, because human beings are always going to do things for 2 reasons: to go towards pleasure and to go away from pain. That's the same in America, in Florida, in Texas, right? And I say that because everyone wants to believe that their market is special. And sure, like every market is slightly different when it comes to competition and advertising and CPMs, which is like cost per million, which is just like how much it costs us to show your ads, or how much it costs Facebook to show your ads on our behalf. But at the end of the day, human psychology does not change. So when you're advertising to cold traffic, they are earlier in the buying process. That's the difference. That's what cold means, right? It means they don't know who you are, but it also means they're just earlier in the buying process. Somebody who's being discharged from a hospital is now. Somebody who is cold, they're just starting to, like, I'll use the example of who we target for private pay. So eldest daughter, they aren't at a do or die moment. It's not like mom just had a fall. They are just starting to find that mom is like being forgetful. They're unsteady on their feet. And they're like, yeah, I got to do something. I just don't know what it is. But they're not in a state where they have to do it now or it's over. So it's up to you and your team to pull it out of them. How do you do it? Well, you do discovery, right? Find out who needs the care, all that. But then you find out, okay, well, you ask pointed questions that accentuate the pain that they're experiencing currently, and how if they don't take action on this, it will equate to way more pain in the future. And what you're doing is you're essentially taking the pain that could happen in the future, bringing it to the moment, which is creating urgency for them in this moment to take the next step, not to buy. You do not sell people on that first call. Oh, sure, you sell them, but you don't close them. We'll say that. You do not close them on the first call. You're just selling the next step. What's the objective or the things you're selling on that first call? In-home assessment. So you have to be able to, in 15 to 20 minutes, ask the right questions that get somebody into a state emotionally where they're like, whew, yeah, I got to take the next step. And that next step is free. It's a free in-home assessment, right? If you want to make cold traffic work, I highly recommend you do a free in-home assessment, right? You'll convert way more people. Okay, let's keep going. So yeah, you got to have a warm traffic. Here's the beautiful thing too, really quick. If you have a cold traffic sales process for a cold, right? When you go, you can use that same process for warm and it will just work even better. So if you're closing 50% of your warm leads, you'll start closing 90%. If you use a cold traffic process. And I say that, right? That's not a guarantee. That's just an observation. Okay. Number 8, you're using a general intake sales script that's not specific to the niche. So let's say you work with veterans, let's say private pay or dementia Alzheimer's as an avatar, and then you work with Medicaid. If you were using the same intake script for all of them, you're probably, again, leaving money on the table, right? Because it's not personalized enough to hit the pain points necessary to be able to essentially get as many people as possible that you're talking to send an in-home assessment. So you need one that speaks to the pain of that specific avatar. All right. Number 9, not doing daily sales training with your sales team or your intake team. A lot of the agencies I talk to, they train them up and they feel confident in their process, yet they don't continually sharpen the sword with the highest leverage people in their company, which is their sales team. That is a big bottleneck. We'll just say that. So it's not just keeping them accountable. It's, are you improving? Like, I'll just share what we do. So with every sales team that I've had, this is what I've done. And this is also what we do with the home care agencies we work with. We train their teams in this exact format. 5 days a week, every day for at least 30 minutes, ideally 30 to 60. And on Monday, you go over discovery, or you could call it the opener and discovery. So opener and discovery would be like opener, like getting on the call. Discovery is like that beginning, who needs the care, that sort of thing. And then Tuesday might be like pain cycle, and it's all about pain. And it's just pain, future pain, current pain. Asking those questions, sitting in it, right? Wednesday might be the close. And the close is like really dialing into, okay, we're asking for the in-home assessment. They're objecting to it. How do you overcome that? Because a lot of intake people are so used to selling warm that they never get an objection, right? It's like, yeah, okay, we're going to do the in-home assessment. Everyone's like, yeah, of course. Like, I need this now. What do you expect, right? But when you're doing cold, you will get people that say no. That's not a bad lead. That's someone who has not been, that is somebody who is not either, we'll put it this way, we want to keep this in your control, right? Because you can only control what's in your control. So that is a person who has not had enough, is not sitting in enough pain to move to the next step. So that's what you drill. Okay, well, they said, not yet. Okay, well, cool. And then you can ask the next question to pull more pain out so that they can come to the realization that if they do not book this in-home assessment, if they do nothing, that means that they will be in 10 times more pain than they're in now, even potentially in the next few weeks, right? So it's very important to dig into that pain. All right, and you got to train your sales team. What did we just do? Number 8? No, we did number 9. Okay, number 10. No verification of KPIs for sales team, or a KPI is not set clearly. Of course, if you're doing multiple millions a year, I'm pretty positive you have KPI set, key point indicators for your team. But what I do see is there's no verification of these KPIs, right? So here's what I mean. Let's say you have a KPI for your sales team around speed, right? Speed to lead. So what percentage of these people get hit and in what length of time? You can say it's within 5 minutes 95% of the time, and you can tell that to your team, and then you can ask them, are they doing it? But is there verification? If there's no verification, you do not know what's happening as the owner. So then it becomes oh no, it's work, because then you're making decisions based on incomplete data or incorrect data. So now you're going in circles because you'll say to yourself, I already do that, or we already do that, when you don't. So you need verification. An example of this is you have to make sure that your sales team is calling from a CRM or a virtual phone, because if you don't, and they're calling from their iPhones, how are you going to track how fast they're getting hit? The answer is you're not. So you have to be able to run reports. You have to be able to nitpick if you needed to, go through every lead and see what time were they generated, and then when was this call and text sent. And what you will find when you start verifying this, it's scary. I've had so many agencies, dozens that we're working with now, that they say, oh no, we reach out to clients with the prospects leads within a minute. My team is awesome. Stand by them. They're great. 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. When we start tracking it, hours for response times. Hours. That's a big difference. That's the difference between connecting with, say, 60% of your leads, and let's say it cuts it by a third. Well, not exactly a third. It wouldn't cut exactly by a half. But let's just say, actually, no, it might cut by a half. I'm like running the numbers of the agencies I saw just in the last week or two. Let's just say for math's sake, so that I'm not getting incorrect math, let's say it does cut it in half. That's the difference between closing, assuming all the other numbers are the same, right? How many of your leads that you talk to book in-home assessments? How many of the in-home assessments close? If you get 100 leads, the difference between reaching them in 5 minutes and hours would be, let's say you're closing 15, or let's say 20, easy math. Let's say you're closing 20 new clients, reaching them within 5 minutes, right? All through the funnel. By reaching half of the leads, so instead of reaching 60% or 2/3, 66, you reach 33. With those other numbers being the same, you're only closing 10. So imagine if there was one action you could do, or your team could do, that could double, not the profit, just the revenue, because it would actually like 3 or 4x the profit. But if you could double the revenue, double the results from a campaign, this is why verification is so important. You need verification of speed to lead and speed of response. You need verification of lead outreach volume. So once the qualified lead comes in, how many times are they getting hit? And again, you need a choreographed system. You cannot leave it up to, oh yeah, just follow up with your leads. It does not work. You need to have a process in place that says 6 hours later, 6 to 8 hours later, they get sent this message. And it's very important too, you need to tell them what to say, right? Now, I know I said personalization, but you still tell them what to say with the personalization in fields, right? Because if you are just telling your team to follow up, it will not work. And I'm telling you this from what I've seen with agencies. I'm also telling you this as a fellow entrepreneur. Like I've run, at my peak in my first business was 7 gyms. I had it's like 70 employees. If you do not tell people exactly what to do, they will not do what you want them to do. That's a guarantee. And then with my online weight loss coaching business, right? Same thing. Like you have to get people. You have to tell them exactly what to do. I'll just leave it there. You also need verification of script adherence. So this goes back to sales training. Are you watching or listening, or somebody on your team, a sales lead, watching or listening to these call recordings? If you are, you have to onboard and train them correctly, right? Ramp them up. Then you have to continually train with them. But then you need to make sure that it's actually happening on these live calls. If not, people just do it's easy. Think of it like a plane that takes off that's going from Boston to Hawaii, right? If you take off 1 degree off, right? 1 degree off, and you do not course correct, you will not end up in Hawaii. You'll end up in Sao Paulo, Brazil, right? That is why it's so important to do sales training and then also verify that they're doing what you're telling them to do in live calls, because all that does is just bring them back on track. And when you stretch that over a long enough time horizon, it ensures you get where you want to get to, which is high conversion, right? Closing 10, 15, 20, 25% of your cold traffic leads and essentially growing your agency, right? All right, and then number 11, expecting cold traffic to convert as fast as warm traffic. This goes for any area of life, but if you have an expectation and your expectation is not met, you most likely will feel bad, right? And if you feel bad long enough, you quit. So if you go into a system like ours, for example, or you start running ads and you think, okay, we should be getting on the phone with these people and they should be closing within 7 days, like 100% of the time, you're gonna have a problem. It's not gonna work. And then you're gonna quit because you're gonna think, oh man, why isn't this working? It doesn't work. That's why. But it does. You gotta take a different frame. And I'll give you an example. So referrals, right? They're in a lot of pain. They need to do something right now. They do it right within 7 days. Great. Cold traffic, they're earlier in the buying process. So you can take this 4 to 6 weeks and condense it using all the strategies I've talked, or all the fixing all the reasons that I've talked about above. But the other thing is just knowing that because they're earlier in the process, it will not happen within 7 days. You can compress it for private pay at least to 2 to 3 weeks. I've seen 7 days, but it will take longer, and that's okay. The other thing to keep in mind is like Medicaid and veterans. These are people that don't have case managers assigned yet. So it takes 30 to 45 days to get them approved. So if you get a lead on day one that ends up becoming a client for Medicaid or let's just say private pay too, just so we set that expectation. Expect when you get a lead that you cannot judge if they are closed until you're at the 6-week mark, right? So if you start a cold traffic process and you're 4 weeks in and you think, oh my gosh, this doesn't work because I haven't closed any clients or I'm not getting paid from any clients, we need to adjust expectations, right? This is not a weekly game. Yeah, we want to take care of the daily and the weekly so the months and years take care of themselves, but yeah, just an expectation that might help. All right, cool. Don't want to drown on too long. That was 32 minutes. All this to say, if you're a home care agency that does 1 million plus a year and any of this sounds familiar or interests you, feel free to book a growth call with my team and we'll show you how our home care growth system can help you scale. That's it. Hopefully you guys have a great day. Hopefully this was helpful. I'm recording this on a Sunday, so hopefully you're still enjoying your weekend. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I want to make more of these because I feel like there's a lot of agency owners out there that would benefit from this. All right. See you later. I'm going to go take my wife on a date. We're going to go see the new Spider-Man movie. Bye.